Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Travel Webcast webinar, Trace Your Roots in Ireland, brought to you by Tourism Ireland and Baxter Media. I'm Dan McDonald from Baxter, and today is Thursday, May 16th. Speaking first today is Roisin Collins, Digital Marketing Coordinator at Tourism Ireland. Hi, Roisin, how are you today?
Hi, everybody. I'm great. How are you?
Oh, doing great, thanks. Thanks so much for joining us, and just before we get started, I'd like to let all the viewers know that if you have any questions during this webinar, just type them into the Q&A box, which is found in your Zoom toolbar, and those questions will be answered after the presentations have finished. Also, if you have any problems hearing or seeing the presentation at any time, just type a quick message into the chat box, and I'll do my best to assist you. Okay, Roisin, since you're already sharing your screen, you can start whenever you're ready.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that introduction, Daniel. Just making sure everyone can see the lovely picture of Newgrange I have at the moment.
Looks great, yeah.
Perfect. Right, so we're good to go. So yeah, my name is Roisin Collins. I work with Tourism Ireland here in Toronto, and I'm just going to give a little overview of today's agenda. We have some really great speakers, and I'm very excited to hear what they have to say. So just to go through the agenda first, obviously why we think you should come to Ireland. It is a beautiful destination, and we have so many different experiences here that are very unique. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Then, as I said, we're going to touch a little bit on the brand experiences and then our three different speakers. And then we'll do some questions and answers at the very end, just so that you can talk to each of our speakers as well. And then, of course, stay tuned because we do have a lovely Waterford crystal vase for anybody that stays on until the very end. So do ask your questions and answers at the end, please. So our speakers, our first speaker is Jack from Cove Heritage Museum. Our second speaker then is Deirdre from Ulster Scots Museum in Belfast. And then we have David from EPIC, the Irish Emigration Museum in Dublin. So they will be speaking shortly. So why should you trace your heritage in Ireland? Well, over 10% of the Canadian population actually claim Irish heritage, which is a huge amount of the population. So it's definitely a great place to come on a trip and just explore your heritage. We do have over 5,000 years of history, and that image that I shared on the first slide is actually Newgrange. So that was... It's older than the pyramids itself. So really, when you come to Ireland, it's not just about exploring our beautiful food and our scenery, it's also about going back in time and seeing if you have any heritage here. And we did have the Vikings, the Normans, the Celts, the medievals, and the Neolithics. All happened in Ireland, so a lot of different history here. Getting to Ireland as well has never been easier from Canada. So as you can see on the screen in front of you, there's a lot of different flights happening, a lot of direct flights as well. So from Toronto, Vancouver, Hamilton, there's year-round direct flights to Dublin. And as you can see, there's also some other seasonal routes too, which are great because I think there's a common misconception that people think that when you're coming from Toronto to Dublin, it takes ages, but realistically, it only takes around 6.5 hours. So it really is a great location to come if you want a trip away. And as I said, there's lots of different things to do when you do get here. Another thing as well is festivals and events. And I think something that's great about Ireland is that we have something happening all year round. So for example, I know we had May the 4th festival in Ireland for the 4th of May. So obviously it celebrated Star Wars. We've so many different farmers markets happening throughout the year. In that picture there, that's the Derry London Derry Halloween Festival. Again, a really great event happening in October. So you really can come at any time of the year. Any time is a good time to visit, and we can assure you, you'll always find an exciting festival and event happening. Then, as I said, there's a lot of different brand experiences that you can see while you're in Ireland. So I already mentioned Ireland's ancient East. We have a lot of heritage here. And on the east coast of Ireland, you'll see that it seems to be where a lot of people settled throughout the years. And today you can still go back and see all of the different monuments. And it really is just an out of this world experience because they're so authentic and unique to Ireland as well, which I think is amazing. And I'd highly recommend, if you haven't done it, definitely try and go and see Ireland's ancient East. Then obviously as well, we have Northern Ireland, and this is on the north coast of Ireland. The Causeway Coastal Route is beautiful. In that picture there, you can see the Giant's Causeway. Again, a great way to see something that's a little bit unique and different, but also get to see the coastal area and the different castles that are located on the Causeway Coastal Route. Then just to go to the bottom left hand of the screen, the Wild Atlantic Way. So this is over 2,500 kilometers of coastal route on the west coast of Ireland. And I have to say it is stunning. Really, really great way to see the world as well, because the Cliffs of Moher are there too. But the great thing about coming to Ireland is that we have a lot of urban locations close to scenic areas. So Ireland, although small, it really does pack a punch because it's very easy to see a lot in a short period of time. And then obviously we have Dublin and its doorsteps. I am a native Dubliner, so I'm a little bit biased, but Dublin is such an amazing place, great way to see a city by foot. But in addition to that, we have a lot of different transport, so it's very easy to go out to Wicklow, it's easy to go out onto the mountains. If you want a trip that has a mix of both, Dublin is also a great place to go and see. It is the gateway too, but as I said, it's good to go out and see the other close by areas, and it's very easy to do with our transport system. And then I could not mention screen tourism. So of course we have Star Wars along the Wild Atlantic Way. They didn't need green screens when they came to Ireland for a lot of it. They actually shot real locations, and I think that just says a lot about Ireland's natural beauty. And then obviously Game of Thrones, hot topic at the moment, but a lot of that was filmed in Northern Ireland. And I don't know if you've seen our new campaign, Glass of Thrones, but again, a really nice, unique way to see a city that has a lot going on and kind of take a Game of Thrones approach to it. So this is a map just to show what I was talking about there. So on the north coast of Ireland, you'll see Belfast, the Giant's Causeway, the Gobbins, and then it kind of merges into the Wild Atlantic Way along the west coast of Ireland. So you can see how it all comes together. And then Ireland's ancient east on the east coast there, just under Dublin. So we are quite a small country. I think from top to bottom, you could get there, top to the bottom, in about 7 hours. So really accessible and very easy to do different things. And then, of course, there's no bad time to visit. So if anyone else is in Toronto at the moment, you'll notice that it's a little bit overcast. My mother has been telling me for the past week it has been very nice in Dublin, so a little bit jealous, but there is no bad time to visit. It's about 5 to 8 degrees in winter. We have a very temperate climate because of our location, so it is a good time to visit all throughout the year, and we do have a lovely summer at the moment. So now I'm just going to see if Jack wants to share his screen. And Jack is from the Cove Heritage Centre, which is in the lovely Cork, so down south of Ireland, and it is a beautiful part to visit.
Okay, good afternoon everybody from Cove in the very south coast of Ireland. I wish I could say I was sitting here in my shorts and t-shirt, but unfortunately today is a little bit cloudy. All of last week we were nice and sunny here. Thank you for the opportunity, first of all, to talk to you about Cove Heritage Centre and our exhibition, which is called The Queenstown Story. On your screen now you will see a shot of Cove, which is a beautiful harbour town, right on the the second largest natural harbour in the world. Cove was once called Queenstown between 1849 and 1922 because of a visit we got from Queen Victoria. In 1922, when we got independence, the locals decided to rename it and confuse everybody with the spelling. C-O-B-H is pronounced Cove. Now, our exhibition deals with the story of Irish emigration from this harbour. 3 million emigrants left from the harbour of Cove, mainly from the early 1800s up to the 1970s. But our story starts a little bit earlier. In fact, Cove was a major port of emigration where over 3 million people emigrated to many destinations and for many different reasons. The Queenstown Story, our exhibition, is an informative and sometimes very emotive exhibition of Irish emigration. Visitors will follow the story from the 1600s, when transportation to the British overseas colonies was commonplace. So many people left to go to Virginia, the Carolinas, the New England states, etc., but also to Barbados, Jamaica, and Montserrat. In the late 1700s, Australia became the new destination for Irish convicts and political prisoners. And then from the early 1800s, British North America, which is Canada, and later the United States, saw mass emigration of Irish men, women and children looking for a better life and fleeing from the famine, etc. During this period, we also see Irish people leaving for other areas such as Brazil, Argentina, South Africa, etc. And they're all covered in our exhibition. We also tell the story of the great connection between this port and the two great liners of the 20th century, the Titanic and the Lusitania. Now, as I said a little earlier, it can be a very emotive, but also educational and interesting look at the story of emigration from this harbour from the 17th to the 20th century. Many of our visitors actually walk in the footsteps of their emigrant ancestors. The centre itself is based in a Victorian railway station, which was built in the 1860s and has been restored back to that situation. So it's a fantastic building in which to have an exhibition. We were, as I said, a departure point for over 3 million Irish emigrants. As part of our exhibition and as part of the centre, we have a resident genealogist. He can do personal consultations with people by appointment, or in fact, they can do them online if they want to do some online research. Also, there is an area within our exhibition where people can do their own research for passenger or ships lists, etc., if they have some information on an ancestor that left from here. From a tour operator point of view, we are a very flexible centre for coaches, for example. We don't operate time slots because we are conscious that sometimes on the Irish roads, traffic can be held up. So as long as we know the day you're coming, you don't exactly have to tell us the time you're coming. In our centre, we also have a cafe, we have gift shops, and all the other facilities. The exhibition itself is a self-guided tour, so visitors can stay as long as they wish. The normal dwell time is about an hour, but we have had people stay in there 3 or 4 hours. They get so engrossed in what's in there. So people can dwell as long as they wish. And we also have audio sets available in 8 different languages, depending on where people are from. Now, just a little bit about Cove itself. You'll see a big black arrow down at the very south coast down there. That's where we're situated. We're about 20 minutes drive from Cork City, which is Ireland's second city. So we're ideally situated at the gateway to both Ireland's ancient east and the famous Wild Atlantic Way. Our centre is open 7 days a week, from 9:30 in the morning until last entry at 5 p.m. in the summer and 4 p.m. in the winter. And you can see our rates are there. Adults, €10, concessions, €8.50. A family, which is 2 adults and up to 4 children, is €25. And then we have special group rates for 10 people or more. This slide you're seeing now is a statue which is directly outside our building, and it's of a famous young lady called Annie Moore. Now, she has no connection with Canada, but she was the first emigrant to be processed on Ellis Island, and she is often used as a symbol for all the Irish emigrants who left from here before and after her. Now, I want to just spend a few minutes talking about the Irish in Canada. And please excuse the shamrock and the maple leaf. I couldn't think of any other thing to say about you. The Irish are the 4th largest ethnic group in Canada. I believe in a 2006 census, 4.5 million or 14% of the population have either a full or partial Irish descent. Approximately 80% of Newfies or Newfoundlanders have Irish ancestry, and as most of you will know, have their own distinct Irish dialect. I met one during the week and I thought he was from County Wexford. St. John in New Brunswick is Canada's most Irish city, and in Quebec and all around Ontario you have large numbers of people with Irish descent. Just a little bit about the stages of immigration. In the late 17th and mid 18th century, there was a lot of emigration from mainly Northern Ireland of Ulster Scots and Ulster Protestants. But I'll let Deirdre from the Ulster Scot Museum deal with that story. Our story really kicks in around the early 1800s, when a lot of people from the southern half of Ireland, certainly from County Cork, left here to go to Upper Canada on various government schemes to resettle people. And they were called the Peter Robinson Settlers. Something in the region of 2,500 people left on various ships and sailed into Quebec and up to Montreal and ended up in an area around Peterborough in Ontario. In the 1830s, we also had large numbers of people who settled in New Brunswick. And obviously, everybody will know that the Great Famine between 1845 and 1851, most of those people settled or sailed into Quebec and in fact were quarantined on Grosse Ile for a period until they were seen fit to enter society. Large numbers of people died, and obviously it was a very sad time in our history, but it's also part of Canadian history now. Just to finish off, I'd just like to say thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about the Cove Heritage Centre. We do get a large number of Canadian visitors, but we'd love plenty more if you're on your way. We know that a lot of people are now paying a lot more attention in tracing their roots or making a connection with their Irish heritage. We do get lots of people like that, and in fact, they get totally engrossed in our exhibition, and it's great to see them, great to talk to them about their Irish ancestry. I'm sure later on there will be some questions, and I'd be delighted to answer them. So thank you all very much indeed.
Thank you so much for that, Jack. That was brilliant. It's always lovely to hear about the different locations. And I know I've been to Cove myself, and it's absolutely stunning. I think that image you shared earlier really just shows what a cute little town it is. A really great place to visit. So now I'm going to pass you over to Deirdre, who's going to talk about the Ulster Scots Museum, which is based in Belfast.
Yes, hello. I am Deirdre. I work at the Discover Ulster Scots Centre in Belfast, and I'm going to have a quick run through with you how to trace your Ulster Scots roots in Ireland, and explain for those of you who don't know exactly who the Ulster Scots are. So the next slide then shows part of our display centre in Belfast, where we tell the story of the Ulster Scots. They're also called in Canada the Scotch-Irish, as they are in America, so you might know that name better. We open weekdays from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m, or if you have a group coming by special request. We are free, and we do give you advice as well as change our displays on a fairly regular basis as well. The next slide will show you where we are. So you see Belfast up there, sort of the big blue blob there near the top. Because we're up there, we're accessible from all areas of Ireland by bus and train. We're about an hour and a half at the most from Dublin. We're also near two airports and the port connection with Scotland and England. And believe it or not, people do hop back and forward to see us on and off from Scotland and England, just the way their ancestors did. So next, I'll explain a bit about us at our centre. We tell the story of the Ulster Scots people, both in Ireland and through migration to countries including Canada. We have a lot of free literature on every topic involving Ulster Scots, including a specific booklet on ties with Canada. And this, I'll give you my website later on, and these can be downloaded from the website as well. And depending on the time of your visit, you might be treated to events too, like an Ulster Scots poetry reading, or maybe some traditional music, which you might enjoy. But to move on to the next slide and go on to a wee bit of the genealogy, because I was a genealogist for many years, though pre-internet, so that'll be sort of dating myself, I'm the first point of contact for many Canadians seeking their ancestors. And they come to us with a huge variation of background knowledge, from simple family memory to pages of detail. I try to help at least with the first steps. So let's start with the overview. The first Ulster Scots in Canada travelled early on, as I think Jack mentioned. unlisted and unrecorded individuals initially, as everyone was. The first main connections between Ulster and Canada were in the 1760s, when a man called Alexander McNutt actually moved 50 Ulster families who had already settled in America up to Nova Scotia. He then also moved many there direct from Ulster, and that started the connection. Migrations to Canada continued from this period, so I meet a lot of people with a lot of stories over a wide period of time. It is important not to confuse the Ulster Scots with the other Irish. The main emigration of the Irish began about the 1840s, again, as Jack said, with the potato famine. Ulster Scots emigrated much earlier and continued to do so in a steady stream. The problem is many Canadians with Ulster Scots ancestors have misinterpreted their origins for many reasons, including surnames, and they identify themselves as either Irish or Scottish. However, it's thought by about the 1890s that about half the immigrants into Canada who were listed as Irish were actually Ulster Scots. So in the next slide, we'll have a look there at people who want to know where the Ulster Scots are and how we locate them. If you have a look at the area that's marked in that sort of peachy colour, this is currently Northern Ireland. It's the main area of the Scots settled, and it's the core area of the old province of Ulster. Movement between Ulster and Scotland went on for thousands of years, but we usually use the 1600s and the period known as the Plantation when we talk about the beginnings of Ulster Scots society. Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland today. Counties involved are Londonderry, Antrim, Down, Armagh, Tyrone and Fermanagh. You should be able to see them marked there. If your ancestors came from these counties, then you may be Ulster Scot. However, you may also be Ulster Scot if your ancestors are from the counties marked in green, and that's Donegal, Monaghan and Cavan, because these were within the old province of Ulster along with the other 6. So in 1921, these 3 became part of the Irish Free State, but the Ulster Scots remained there as Irish citizens. So it tends to be a bit confusing, but you'll get your head around it. Basically, we populated the big northern spludge of Ireland. If you want to look at the next slide then, if you're not sure actually about your location, this slide should give you a few sample surnames of the Ulster Scots. And having been to Canada a few times, I know those names are all over Canada. Armstrong, Beatty, Crothers, Dixon, Elliott, Ferguson, a lot of these, like Graham, for example, as well, are the border reiver names who originated between Scotland and England. Mac names, that's not an individual surname, that's a reference. The names that start with Mac are usually names that crisscross between Ulster and Scotland over generations, and all the rest of them as well. But of course, there are dozens and dozens and dozens more, so if you're not sure, just feel free to ask. So the next slide then, if we move on a wee bit. If you've decided you want to visit and research your Ulster Scot genealogy, you have to bear a few points in mind before you arrive. You've probably been told that all the records were destroyed in Dublin in 1922, but the good news is that's not the case and many do survive. But firstly, in your preparation, it's important that you assemble everything you know on paper. It may be heartbreaking, but there are still places in Ulster where the Wi-Fi just won't allow you access to all those great Ancestry.com details that you have. So I do advise you to get it on paper and trust paper because it's portable and it won't let you down, old as that sounds. Secondly, try to pinpoint your ancestors down to the smallest area, the most local area. You may not know the townland, and a lot of people don't, and even understanding the land divisions and names is another steep learning curve anywhere in Ireland. But you maybe know the parish, or possibly even the nearest town. If you had a place name but you don't know what or where it is, there are a few websites that can help, and I have at least one of those on my information sheet that you can get later on. The names of the places are mainly in Ulster Gaelic, so you might have to, whenever you're looking up the townland or the place name, get the closest sound that you can and at least work from there. You need to be open-minded with the spelling and the pronunciation, not just of the places, but of your surname as well. So on the next slide then, if we move on, thank you. I've got a few places there. When you arrive in Ulster, there's a few places that I would recommend you visit after you've been to our Discover Ulster Scots Centre, of course. The Public Record Office of Northern Ireland, and again, I've a few on my information sheet, I've got the details of that. It's actually within walking distance of our centre. in the Titanic Quarter. And here you will find virtually everything you need if it exists. Civil and religious records. There's online access to some of these, but mostly the secrets of your ancestors are at the Public Record Office, hidden in dusty estate land leases and badly preserved church account books, but sure, that gives you the joy of the discovery of them all. You do need to have done your preparation to go to the Public Record Office and be prepared to spend at least a full day there. The General Registry Office in Northern Ireland has all the civil registrations from the beginnings in 1845 with Protestant marriages, and then 1864 on with all the rest. That's sort of self-explanatory. The Museum of Orange Heritage is one you mightn't have heard of. It has a lot of different records. Because the Ulster Scots moved back and forward to Canada and were largely Protestant, this should be maybe a place that you think of visiting. It has records from some of the soldiers of the 17th century battles that you may have heard of, but very importantly, it has archives of Orange lodges from the 18th century, and there were many of these in Canada in the 19th century, so it's possible you could find that connection through lodge letters of transfer, for example. The Linen Hall Library in Belfast City Centre, again, within easy distance of the Discover Ulster Scots Centre, which I'll just keep plugging for you. It contains not just the originals of various old family histories, but also copies of the Belfast Newsletter from 1738. This was the first newspaper published in Ulster and the oldest surviving one in Ireland, so it's worth having a look at the indexes and things. And then the Presbyterian Historical Society, again, Central Belfast, and it's invaluable if your ancestors were Presbyterian, not just for the records, but for the general insight into the lifestyles in the different periods. All these except the Public Record Office you will need appointments for. So the next slide then. All right. Really this takes us back to the locality of your ancestors. Record checking is fascinating and usually fulfilling, but there's no substitute for actually going back to the area your ancestors came from and standing beside your family headstone. A sense of place is so important. Most Ulster areas have small local libraries. These, in turn, always have a section on local history, and reading their collection can tell you a lot. In fact, talk to the librarian. Find out if there's a local history group or even a lone researcher somewhere around who might be useful. The local touch has proven useful in the past, very frequently. Everyone's happy to welcome home the wandering Ulster Scot and have a gossip about the family. And finally, if the worst comes to the worst and you've no real leads to go on, get as close as you can to where your roots are. If all you know is that your ancestors left from Londonderry Port, then walk the walls of Londonderry as they would have. If your ancestor was a farmer somewhere in Fermanagh, stroll along Lough Erin's banks and appreciate the peace. If your ancestor was a fisherman, and hail the sea breezes at Strangford Lough, there's no substitute for being there, for walking in the soil and breathing in the air of your Ulster Scots ancestors. And at the Discover Ulster Scots Centre, we're happy to help and guide you. But for now, thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Deirdre. That was amazing. It's great to see all the different, I suppose, resources available when you go and visit. And you mentioned there as well about being near the Titanic Quarter, and the Cathedral Quarter. They're also really nice places to go and visit. So a very central location. So thank you for sharing that. I'm now going to introduce you to David from the Epic Irish Emigration Museum. So that's based in Dublin. So over to you, David.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? My name is David Cleary. I'm from Epic, the Irish Immigration Museum. I hope you can all hear me and it's loud and clear.
Yep.
So I don't know if a lot of you are familiar with Epic at the moment. So we're a relatively new museum in Ireland. So we're located right in the centre of Dublin, so the Docklands area of Dublin. We've been open just a little over 3 years. And Epic is, as the name suggests, the Irish Immigration Museum. So what we do in Epic is we bring people through a fully digital museum that's interactive and tells the story of 1,500 years of Ireland's history. And we talk about the 10 million Irish people that left the island of Ireland during that time. So a lot of what Jack and Deirdre would have talked about from the Ulster Scots and the Cove side, we tell some of the stories from some of the other parts of Ireland as well. So it's just to continue on that messaging as well. In Epic, as I said, it's a fully digital museum. So we bring guests through 20 different galleries talking about the various motivating factors as to why our Irish people would have left the island. So we look at the kind of the stories of sorrow and loss, and bringing people through the reasons why over 1,500 years Irish people were either forced to leave Ireland or were offered opportunities abroad that caused them to want to leave Ireland. Then what we do is we bring people through our influence galleries, and this is where we invite people to understand Ireland and its influence around the world. So as well as telling the story of the emigrants and the reasons that they left, the different ports that they went from, how they got to their new worlds and the countries that they settled in, we actually start to look at the influence that they had in their new worlds and the Irish diaspora as well, all over the world, and what happened. Then we bring people through our celebration gallery. So this is where we look at March the 17th all over the world and St. Patrick's Day, and why for such a small little island the whole world knows of Ireland, the whole world knows of Irish people. And this is where in the celebration gallery we discover why Irishness is celebrated around the world. So at Epic what we do is we like to explore how every person is connected, and that's what Epic stands for, EPIC, every person is connected, because we are showing that the 10 million Irish people that left the island have had connections and made connections all over the world. So we bring clients through Epic to show that there's more to Ireland than our stereotypes. So I'll just bring you through a couple of our slides here to show you some of the imagery of the museum. We're located in the very centre of Dublin in the Docklands area. So if you're familiar with Dublin, it's on the east coast of Ireland. It's split by the River Liffey into two, into the north side and the south side. The building that we're looking at here is where Epic is housed. It's called the CHQ building. CHQ stands for Custom House Quay, which is the area of the river that we are located. So the building, it's quite a stunning building. It's 200 years old. It used to be a whiskey, wine and tobacco warehouse. So the ships used to sail up the River Liffey and they used to unload their goods into our building, and they used to pay their tariffs and their taxes in the beautiful custom house right beside us. These days, Epic now and CHQ building is a location for cafes, bars and restaurants, and the cornerstone of the building is the Epic story and what we tell. So this is just a little map of Dublin to give you a bit of a sense of it. For some of you that may have been to Dublin already, you'll be familiar with O'Connell Street, which is the main street in Dublin. So Epic is a 12-minute walk from O'Connell Street, and we're very, very close to Trinity College as well, and we're right on the Lewis line. So at Epic, what we do is we bring people through on a journey through Ireland's history, and we show the impact on the world. Ireland and its influence all over the world. What we do at Epic is we start to explore the different routes that people took. Now, how we do that is through digital means. It's through an interactive storytelling museum. So we bring people through 20 galleries, showing them the different things that Irish people would have talked about, and the different reasons why they would have left. We're really discovering Ireland from the outside in. And what we like to see Epic as Epic is a story telling museum about the Irish people themselves. So when you think about Guinness and you think about Jameson, Guinness would be about Guinness and the brand of Guinness. Jameson would be about whiskey. Epic is very much a museum about people and showing where Irish people went all over the world and the culture that they brought with them. Jack would have mentioned some of these facts already, so this is just a kind of an overview of this as well, about the 4.5 million Canadians that claim Irish descent. A couple of other facts and interesting facts: that the oldest St. Patrick's Day in Canada takes place in Montreal and has been running since 1824. 500,000 were in attendance last year. The only Gaeltacht area located outside of Ireland is actually found in Tamworth, Ontario. The Gaeltacht area is the areas of Ireland where Irish is predominantly spoken still. In Epic, what we do is we bring people on different journeys celebrating different themes and different topics. One of these would be politics. So in the museum we start to explore the different areas where Irish people would have led change, and we feature some of the six of the Prime Ministers of Canada and their Irish descent. We look at all sorts of things like the Irish influence in Canada, America, in Chile, South America, all over the world, and politics is just one way of us to do it. We also do it in sports and conflict and different things like that. Speaking of conflict, one of the few remaining Irish regiments in service is the Irish Regiment of Canada. So that was formed in 1915 during the First World War. And we have a conflict gallery in the museum where we tell the story of the Irish soldiers that went abroad and what brought them abroad and where they settled and what happened to them when they settled in their new world. So Deirdre and Jack have spoken a little bit about this, about the genealogy side and the tracing the ancestry. So at EPIC, as well as telling the story of where the Irish people went, we partner with the Irish Family History Centre on site in the museum. So this is where your clients can come and trace their ancestry and trace their own family roots. So I know around the world, the DNA swabs and people finding out their percentages of where their family have come from is becoming increasingly popular. And for people to find out that they are 50 or 60% Irish is fantastic, and it really piques their interest. But the genealogy side and tracing their roots is really the key. So they actually get to see the birth certificates and the marriage certificates and the actual stories, the real stories behind their ancestry. Here's a couple of different points that we've put together here just to be able to help you recommend to your clients about if they are coming to Ireland, and one of the main reasons they might want to come to Ireland is to trace their family roots. You'll be able to give them a couple of hints and tips to actually help them. So when they're over in Canada prior to their trip, the different information that they would have to find out about the emigrant, where they should start, and the different records that they can look up in Canada in advance of them coming to Ireland. So when they arrive to Ireland, whether they are going up to the Ulster Scots Museum and speaking to Deirdre, or they're going down to Cove to Jack, or coming to us in Dublin, they'll have a lot of information in place already, and then they can use that information and give it to the genealogist, and then they will be able to find out an awful lot more of the stories and the birth certificates and all the genealogy background from their own family history. So I know that the Baxter will be sharing this presentation with you, so I won't be able to go, I won't have to go through all of the different individual points here. So you might be able to come back to this and take some records and notes from this slide, because it'll just help you share with your own clients about how they would trace their own ancestry in Ireland as well. Here's just a couple of slides. We had Justin Trudeau come to our museum last year. So he was presented with his genealogy and his family history. You'll see in the top right there, we had Prince Harry and Meghan visit us last year. And they absolutely love the museum, because the museum is something a little bit different. It's fully digital, so we're just presenting our Irish story in a very unique way. You'll see a couple of the shortlists that we have been very lucky enough to have been included in European Museum of the Year shortlist for last year, and we've been shortlisted for a World Travel Award as Europe's leading tourist attraction this year. So hopefully in a couple of weeks we'll be able to find out to see if we won that. So there's been 15 of Europe's top attractions, including the Colosseum and Buckingham Palace and the Eiffel Tower, as well as the Cliffs of Moher, Spike Island, and ourselves. We're very proud to be included in that. Finally, this is the last slide. So these are just a couple of different points about the actual museum itself, that we're open 7 days a week. We're 10 minutes walk from O'Connell Street, and we offer 20 interactive galleries. The museum is designed to be a self-guided museum, so it's ideal for your FIT clients when they're coming over. They can walk through the museum at their own leisure. We can offer audio guides in different languages if they require, or to just help them with introductions into different galleries. But for any group tours or smaller individual families, we can offer private guided tours as well. The tailored guided tours would offer a different focus on Canadian characters and themes. So if we know that you've got our Canadian clients coming over, we can put a little bit more focus into that. At the bottom there, you'll see that we work with all of the major Canadian operators. So if that's how you're booking through a different operator, we already work with them, or my details are at the bottom to contact me directly if you need commissionable rates or anything like that. A couple of other interesting points that might be useful on this slide is that the dwell time in the museum is 90 minutes. It's just a recommended time. That's how long people generally spend going through the museum. We offer all-day tickets, so they can actually come in the morning, spend an hour in the museum, and pop upstairs for some lunch or some coffee, and come back to the museum later on. Or alternatively, we partner up with the Jeannie Johnson famine ship, which is just located outside the building, so they can pop over there and learn about the stories of the Irish that went to Canada on the Jeannie Johnson ship. And as I mentioned, we offer the genealogy research service on site, partnering with the Irish Family History Centre. So you might have some questions for me later on, which I would welcome. I'm going to hand back to Roisin now, but thanks very much for your attention. And my email address is there if you have any questions in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, David. It's funny, I just moved here myself about 3 months ago, and I used to drive by Epic every single day, and I never knew every person is connected is what it stood for. So you learn something new every day.
Every day is a school day, Roisin.
Yeah, every day. And I've heard such great things about Epic Museum and, you know, its interactive galleries. So it's very cool. And
Thank you.
obviously it's in Dublin, so I love it.
Thank you.
So moving on now, how can we support you? So these are just the different supports we have available. So there's newsletters and e-zines. So my colleague Sandra, if you want to be added to any of our databases, feel free to contact her at the email address there. She'll be able to add you to our database. In addition to that, if you need promotional literature, we do have an office in Toronto, so you're always welcome to pop in and pick up some literature. We can also give you advice here as well. If that doesn't suit, or if you're based a little bit further afield, you can always go onto Ireland.com, and we do have a brochure section at the bottom that you can either download brochures digitally and send them to your customers that way, or else you can actually order them by post also from our website. So lots of different options there to get literature. We also have different workshops and roadshows. So I'm just going to touch briefly on our sales workshop that we have upcoming in September. So that will touch on Ottawa, Montreal and London. And I would ask, it's September 9th, I think, to the 12th. So just save the date. Invites will be issued later this month. So just keep an eye out. And as I said, if you're not in our database, just pop Sandra a note and she can add you in. We also have a fam trip coming up in October. We do have very limited number of spaces available on the upcoming familiarization trip, and this trip will incorporate a few different highlights across Ireland, including Dublin, Belfast, the Causeway Coastal Route, and Ireland's Ancient East. So a full itinerary will follow for the selected applicants, and as I said, contact Sandra if you need any further information with regard to that. And then in addition to those newsletters and e-zines, Sandra does send out different product updates, so you can always stay up to date on what's happening in Ireland, different awards that certain museums may have received, that kind of thing. So I would encourage you to get in touch with her if you need further information. Then as well, I'm just going to touch on, as I said, that FAM opportunity coming up. It really is a great opportunity to get out and just explore the product on the ground. I think being in Ireland, if you've ever had the great opportunity to go, it really is a once in a lifetime experience. It's so great to get down and like really immerse yourself in the different locations. So as I said, I would encourage you to consider that. And then also, just to refer to the Ireland Specialist Programme. So this is an interactive online training programme designed to teach you about selling Ireland to your clients. And it really does help because you can really promote yourself as an expert about Ireland. You can receive a different certificate for taking part in it. And in addition to that, then you get, as I said, get kept up to date with different things that are happening in Ireland, and it's also a good way to join a fam trip to Ireland too. So if you are, really passionate about Ireland or want to get to learn a little bit more about how to better program it, I would recommend getting involved in the Ireland Specialist Programme. And then just to move on to all of the different resources available. So we have some excellent videos. You can find them on our YouTube channel. And you're free to share these on your social media or link to them in e-zines or on your website. They're really nice punchy videos that just let you show in like a minute or 30 seconds or less how great Ireland is and the different experiences you can see when you're there. And then we also have some like inspirational videos on like what you should pack or, how to prepare for rainy weather, that kind of thing. So a fun way to get the message across. And then, as I touched on, we do have different social media channels which are great for repurposing for your own needs. So there are different handles there, and I would say to follow them, and feel free to tell your customers to follow them too. It's a great way to kind of get them excited for their trip, and do of course keep in touch with us as well. So now just going to move on to the last section, just questions and answers. I think each of our presenters today did an amazing job, and it's great to see how much different heritage opportunities there are throughout Ireland and the connection between Ireland and Canada. So I'm going to open the floor now. Daniel, I don't know if you've received any questions, and if not, feel free to put them in the chat box now.
Thanks so much, Roisin. Yeah, only a couple have been submitted so far, but I invite all of you to submit any questions that you may have into the Q&A box, which is found in your black Zoom toolbar. So just click on that and you can submit questions into there. And a couple I had already answered through the chat box earlier, and someone had asked for Sandra's email address to be reiterated. So what I did there was I typed it into the chat box. And Roisin, can you just confirm that I spelled it right there?
Sure. So
great. Oh yeah.
I'll just put that back up on the screen there, because Sandra is our trade executive, so she is the best person to reach out to, and she'll be happy to help you with any queries that you may have. So I'll just leave that there for a minute or two.
That's great. Thanks, Roisin.
Perfect.
And then in the Q&A box here, we have questions from Lori and Michelle so far. Lori says, fantastic webinar. I've been to Ireland several times, and I'm taking my 3rd group trip next year. Oh, that's great, Lori. She says, I'm interested in finding out more about dual citizenship, Canadian-Irish, New Brunswick/Ontario. My grandfather was from Shannon in Ireland.
Okay, so in Shannon, is that aimed at anybody in particular? I myself don't know about dual citizenship, but
I'm not sure. She submitted that at 2:26.
Okay. I'm sorry, was that Larry, did you say?
That's right.
Larry, if you wouldn't mind just maybe, is that directed at me, or was there a slide in particular that you were referring to? It's great to hear that you have heritage there. Oh, thanks, Michelle.
Oh, it's perfect. I see that too. Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, so the DFA, they're actually another branch of the Irish government. So if you do have like visa related questions, I'd suggest getting in touch with either the Irish consulate or else DFA, because Tourism Ireland would look after more the tourism side and promoting people and marketing the island of Ireland overseas. But if it's specific to, you know, visas and stuff, that would be the best point to contact.
Oh, that's excellent. So the next question is from Judy, the next question is from Susan, who asks, is the Epic Museum okay for those with a visual impairment?
David, if you want to...
Sorry, yeah, no, I'm just unmuting myself there. It is suitable for people with visual impairment. The museum is located in the vaults of the building, so in some areas it can be quite dark, but it's very, very accessible for people walking around the museum. And we put in place a couple of different kind of tactile areas where people with visual impairments can make their way around. It's something that's kind of close to my own story. My wife is actually a mobility teacher for people with visually impaired children and young adults, so I brought her into the museum to make sure that if she was teaching someone how to move around the space, that she could that they'd be able to do it safely. So definitely we are, yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you, David. Oh, and Lori asks, can you post the phone number again? I missed it.
Sorry, the phone number for which?
I'm not 100% sure. Lori, can you type again what you mean by that?
Let me see. It's good to see there's lots of people that have been to Ireland and have some sort of heritage connection. It always amazes me how close the two countries are, even since I've got here. And obviously all of our speakers today are very well aware of the connection. But I live in an area like called Belfast Street, which is amazing because, you know, to see how the heritage has passed through and become part of Canadian culture today, it's lovely.
Oh yeah, and that's fascinating too.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Do we have any other questions?
There's a question from Melanie who asks, if a client only knows they have Irish heritage and have nothing more than a last name, where is the best place for them to start researching their geological journey?
Who wants to jump on that one?
I would, sorry, this is Jack. I would say you would have to start with your family members. If you only have a surname, it's very difficult to trace anything back, but older family members may have more information than you have without even knowing it. So you really have to ask questions of your older parents, grandparents, if they're there. They may have snippets of information that might add a little bit more to it. But just with a surname, it's very difficult. But I'm sure Deirdre, as a genealogist, she'd point them in the right direction.
Oh yeah.
Great. And of course, we're going to allow another couple minutes for people to submit any questions that they may have. And you can submit them to either the chat box or the Q&A box. And I had someone ask earlier, someone said, oh, I signed in a few minutes late. If I wanted to watch the beginning, is this recorded? And I just answered and said that, yes, definitely these webinars are recorded, and the recording will go live on the Baxter Media YouTube channel tomorrow definitely by lunchtime. So probably by the early afternoon tomorrow Eastern time. Just go on YouTube and search for Baxter Media, and the most recent upload will be the recording of this webinar.
Perfect. Thank you, Daniel. If there's no further questions, I might finish up.
Yeah, sure. I believe that's it.
Okay, amazing. Well, I just wanted to say a big thank you for everyone joining today, and also thank you to our 3 speakers. I definitely learned a lot, and I'm very excited for my next trip home. I'm definitely going to try and build in a few different heritage pieces. I need to talk to my parents, I think. But yeah, thank you again, everybody, for your time, and Daniel for hosting. And yeah, have a great day.
No
Absolutely.
problem.
Thank you, Roisin.
Thank
You
you.
as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack, David, and Deirdre. It was a pleasure having you guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And thank you to all the agents that attended today and all the travel professionals that tuned in from across Canada and elsewhere. Thank you so much for joining, and have a great day, everyone. Take care.